Why advertisers don't get gaming. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Clement Tsang in Shanghai. China is one of the largest and most active markets for online and mobile gaming. By 2015, there will be 266 million Chinese gamers playing at least 2 hours per month. 64% of those spend money on online games each month. But advertisers have been slow to find ways to connect with gamers, and there are a few examples of good integrations to date. We'll find out why this week on Thoughtful China from experts like Fink, Gentle and Liam Winston, who will share insights about how advertisers should be looking at online games to engage with China's massive community of gamers. But first, with us is Patrick Wheeler, CEO and co-founder of Smartians. Patrick, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us about Smartians? You're based in Berlin, but you're also operating in China.
Yeah, that's correct. We have an office in Suzhou, just outside Shanghai, but we're also based in Berlin, as you say, so it actually works quite well in terms of the channel to China, the west to east channel for foreign game developers. So yeah, we have a great base in Berlin, which is really a center for game development in Europe. And so we have our hands quite full at the moment with a lot of games coming through that channel to China.
Okay, what are some of the apps and games that some of our viewers might know of? Okay,
well, and we're a relatively new company, but in the last year we've brought the likes of Overkill 2, which is a first-person shooter to China, an Android game. Our main focus is Android. Also Dragon Season, and now we're also working on some very interesting titles in terms of Pull My Paw, which is a very cute, endless runner, more endless flyer if you like, as well as City Island 2, which is a massive franchise in the West. It's got 20 million downloads on Google Play. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that performs in China. It's a city building game. And also we have Farm Up, which is also a building game but based around farming. So there's a lot of customization and a lot of items. So again, I think it'd be quite interesting in terms of China to see how those games perform.
Oh, that's a great portfolio of different games. So now that you've entered and you've been operating for a while, what are some of the key challenges or differences that you see between operating in the West and operating in China?
Well, obviously in China, you've got a lot of fragmentation in terms of app stores. There's over 300 app stores here. Some say more, some say less. Even if you take into consideration the majors, you're still talking about 20 plus app stores. We normally distribute to 40 or so app stores. From there, those smaller app stores pick up the apps from those larger app stores. So there's a lot of fragmentation on the app store front, but also on the payment front. So you've got different payment methods, both carrier, China Mobile, China Unicom, China Telecom, and of course you have Alipay and you have UnionPay. So it's quite difficult to handle all those different software development kits as a developer just on a simple technical level. But also then managing the App Store relationships is quite time consuming and can be quite cumbersome.
So what does that mean for the future of mobile gaming for advertisers that sit inside this extremely fragmented and constantly evolving ecosystem?
Well, as I say, I mean, it's really that you need to have a local partner who can actually help you when it comes to dealing with the app stores, because mediating with the app stores, negotiating for promotion is often very much on a game-by-game basis or an app-by-app basis. So you do need a partner there that can manage that process, manage those relationships, because to build those relationships takes a lot of time. This is why it's important for us to have an office, a presence here in China with people that know the market. Because us coming from Europe, we're never going to be able to bring those kind of relationships, or it'll take a huge amount of time to build them. So that is very important. And also then connecting with brands is also important. If you have an IP that is based around celebrity, around a very strong brand has a lot more gravity in China, we found, so that's also very important.
So yeah, that was the big question, is are advertisers working well in this space, in this format? Have they got a lot to learn, or is it still an open field for any fast mover?
Well, I mean, I think you've seen Rovio did a marvelous job, of course, with Angry Birds. They had a certain traction, and they used that in terms of then real-world merchandise. You had the coffee shops, you have everything. So they used that very, very well, and perhaps that was one of the earlier examples of where in the gaming medium, in particularly mobile gaming, that had been done in China. And so I think, yes, they use that very well. Others can certainly use that better. And I think it's something that should be definitely focused on. Considering the difficulty in dealing with app stores, you always have to look at alternative channels, something clever, something unique. And connecting with a real-world brand definitely gives you extra traction.
I believe you're also a fan of comic books. Tell us, what's your favorite character?
Well, I'm stuck somewhere between Batman and Iron Man. I guess it's because I like to think that I could one day be the Iron Man or Batman. Of course, I lack the funds for either. And also a dash of Green Arrow, because I've always been a fan of Green Arrow even before the TV series, the Arrow TV series that's on at the moment.
So you might want to consider then the Lego version. It's less costly, and your children can also enjoy it, as my children do as well. Thanks for your time, Patrick.
Thank you, Clem.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I'll share a thought or two about why advertisers aren't taking advantage of China's massive community of online gamers.
I think it's really impressive how influential Thoughtful China has become. Largely, I think it's because the topics and the debate are really interesting, and they manage to get people together who normally wouldn't come together to really debate and discuss the issues that affect our industry.
Around 2,400 years ago, the Greek philosopher and mathematician Plato once said, "You can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation." In today's hyper-connected world, consumers now have access to more game-related activities and distractions than ever before in the history of mankind. Playing solo or with friends, in real-time or turn-based, the ability to discover more about each other and share these moments in games has been accelerated by mobile connectivity and devices. The definition of gaming and gamers is no longer confined to an audience that represents players of League of Legends, World of Warcraft, Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty, whose first titles were launched more than 15 years ago. Today, that definition includes casual and social gamers who play web browser games like DTS, Light of Darkness, and mobile-based games like Tiantian Kupao and Wojiao MT. If gaming delivers sticky audience activity that is engaging, social and scalable, then why are advertisers less active in this space despite its audience growth over the last 15 years? For brands to communicate with gamers beyond a banner, they need to listen, plan, understand and position their message to audiences and their affinity at a grassroots level. Beyond buying media at a soccer game, sponsoring a team can create a platform that provides deeper and broader access to own media assets, from above-the-line exposure to through-the-line and below-the-line activation with deeply engaged communities. Gaming is no different. Brands whom have a strategical interest to position themselves in this space need a medium-term vision, investment, partners, and resources to create their own media platforms, to stand out and offer an appealing and engaging gaming mechanism at scale. Welcome back. We're in the studio today with Graham Fink, Chief Creative Officer at Ogilvy & Mather China, Kevin Gentle, Digital Strategy Director at LabBrand, and Liam Winston, Managing Partner at Mobile Now Group. Graham and Kevin, great to have you back on the show, and Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're talking about online gaming in China today, and specifically how brands can get involved in this fast-growing area. How fast? Revenue in Chinese mobile game market is expected to grow 93% to 2.9 billion in 2014, and reach 7.7 billion by 2018, according to the market research company Nico Partners. So Kevin, let's start with you. Your company works with Logitech in China. From that experience, what are some of the key trends that you've seen in the gaming market?
Well, as you said, first of all, the market is booming like crazy. But what's really interesting, especially for me as a marketer, is that if you look at the growth drivers, the growth is not coming from the usual, your hardcore gamers, not the usual geeks in the dorm room. The growth is coming from like housewives or like regular young people who can play casual games on the metro, at home. So the growth is coming especially from mobile with, last year we had all these games like Tiantian Kupao, Tiantian Aixiao Chu, etc. And we've all seen these people going crazy for them. And what's really interesting is that you see the growth of a new category of gamers, that is hardcore casual gamers. That is people who are going to play 20, 25 plus hours per week, but play a very simple mobile game. And the fact that these games are going mainstream, as a marketer, that's really interesting, because it really expands the horizons of what's possible in terms of brand engagement, in terms of integration in brands, of brands into the gameplay, etc. So the fact that it's going more mainstream is really a big opportunity.
With all of these impressions shifting into this mobile gaming space, why is there no advertising that's following it? I mean, Tencent's P&L, a very, very small percentage comes from advertising. Everything else comes from virtual goods, et cetera, et cetera. So why aren't advertisers grasping this opportunity?
I think, I mean, a perspective on this is that I believe a lot of gamers are in some way turned off by advertising. So I think when brands are looking to get into that space, the last thing they really want to have is a big kind of advertising push at them. So I guess that covers two aspects. It covers firstly probably the prevalence of advertising within the game. So sometimes I think gamers accept that if they're going to play for free, they're going to be having to be open to advertising. The other side of things, which I think comes back to the branding perspective, if a brand very much does want to get involved in gaming, they don't want to have a big brand push at them. It has to, the game first and foremost has to be a game, and then the brand message needs to come through secondary. So it can't be a big overt brand push. It really needs to be gaming first and foremost, brand engagement opportunity second.
That is absolutely true. As a community, when we look at the community of gamers, they are very demanding, and they smell BS 100 miles away. So you need to be authentic as a brand, whether you want to advertise to gamers or you want to advertise directly inside games. You need to be credible. You need to be accepted. And a lot of brands have just completely failed in a miserable way at trying to buy their way into the gamer community. So I think that's one of the reasons for which a lot of brands are not quite seeing the opportunity or failing to grasp it, is because they're trying too hard. It's not natural. You really need to be born, to have that in your DNA.
So I think, as you've both spoken to that point, it's about relevance and context, right, in order to really drive that engagement. So is this particular tactic or this function within the brand strategy sitting with the media agencies or with the digital agency, or is it with the client, or is it in product design and strategy? Who's taking ownership of this and who's doing it well because of that issue?
I think it's a tricky one. Maybe there's no natural ownership, because I think sometimes if it's sitting within maybe a sales or operations perspective, their perspective is obviously to drive sales. And a branded game is definitely not the best vehicle for driving sales. It's more about the brand engagement opportunity. It's fantastic for building awareness. For a lot of branded games, you have a lot of time to engage with the consumer. So it really does help to raise awareness both of the brand and also of the products as well. So I think it's probably the natural fit, I'd say, would be with the brand team, because I think they would be having the metrics to which the game could benefit them the most.
So it almost sounds like it's a function of social listening and earned media, listening to your target audience, what do they like, and then driving owned media through an investment of a 3-year strategy to really own that device, to own that app and experience, rather than doing a media campaign where you just pay for banners to drive to a one-off app that runs for 2 months that dies shortly afterwards. So I mean, from that basis, I mean, what is the experience that you've seen for Perrier? What was their objective? What was their brief?
Well, it started from the point that, you know, in China there's a lot of restrictions and people are under a lot of pressure and social pressure as well. So Perrier wanted to come in and liberate people. So we had a lot of discussion about it, and we talked about the most addictive games, if you like, the ones that are almost mindlessly silly and stupid, and you don't have to go through big processes, and they're not complicated at all. And that's where I think they just come through and win. And so what we did is we imagined a giant bottle of Perrier, right, which was like the biggest bottle of Perrier in the world, and it had 2 billion bubbles in it. And we thought, okay, there's 1 billion people in China plus. What if everyone popped a bubble? So the challenge was, could we pop 1 billion bubbles? And and the idea is it's very simple to access this. It's not an app. We wrote it in HTML5, so you just shoot the QR code and you're straight in, or you access it directly through Weibo, and then you're playing the game, and you literally just sit and pop bubbles. That's all you do. You just pop bubbles. But it looks beautiful the way it's done, and the great thing is to keep people engaged is that every now and again, if you pop a bubble, there's a prize inside. So what I really loved about the prizes was they are it's another way of liberating yourself. So they're interactive. So you could go and learn to be a DJ for a day, or you could learn to sing. And one of my favorite ones was you could go to be styled by a famous stylist. So that was another way of liberating yourself.
And did you see that there was a particular sex in terms of the target audience reaction? Was it more males, more females? Was it equal?
I think more predominantly male playing online games, I think. Although, you know, I know a lot of women who play games, but not necessarily online. But, you know, I think women are more involved with social media games like Happy Farm, etc. But it's predominantly male.
So are there any exciting developments for 2015, specifically for iPhone 6, 6 Plus, or NFC-enabled games? Anything on the radar?
Not necessarily from a gaming perspective, but I think some of the other I guess toys that iOS 8 is bringing to the table definitely is going to open up the parameters. And I think then by default that will open up the vision or the universe from a gaming perspective as well. Clearly, I think the 6 Plus is going to create a larger screen for gaming, so that's definitely a plus as well.
I think that beyond just developing a game, it's more about how do we inject gamification even in offline operations, etc. So exploiting the whole mechanism of gaming and engaging people through gaming doesn't need to be necessarily by developing a branded game or partnering with an established game. So that is something we try to get a lot of clients to think more along these lines, which is often much more manageable, much more easy to implement, and the cost isn't as high as developing your own game.
And certainly, I mean, with the emergence of wearable technology and the Internet of Things, and the fact that the new iPhone with the smartwatch can share your heartbeat, means that you can actually measure the reaction of the audience to an engagement if they allow privacy release of data. But I think that is kind of the next wave of how do brands monitor real return on engagement, which is a new term I've come up with, return on engagement. So Graham, why aren't more advertisers using gaming or gamification as part of their key strategy in communicating with their target audience?
I think that, you know, if you look at the whole timeline, I think that gaming and mobile is still relatively new. It's still in its infancy, and I think, you know, a lot of clients, a lot of advertisers, they're still not sure of the best way of doing it. Maybe there's a lot of mistrust, and they can't perhaps measure things. But I think it's changing, you know, and you know, we're beginning to get more and more briefs to do it, and I think it's something that we were talking about earlier. I think you have to respect the space. You know, I think when branded games are playing there in that space, you've got to realize you can't keep thrusting the brand down the throat. You should be playing with the brand, not overly selling it.
So are there other examples of clients that are using gaming well?
Yeah, we did actually a very nice game for H&M where we mixed fashion and music together. And what I liked about it, I love the interface. So it was kind of like a mixing desk, and you could sort of take the clothes and, you know, the shoes and dresses and shirts, etc. And you sort of chose these different things and you put them on a mixing desk, and each one had its own sound. And that was brilliant because it was just like, again, playing with fashion, playing with music, interactive. You know, it was a lot of fun.
So what are some of the mistakes that advertisers have done in 2014 related to games?
Well, I don't know if it's specific to 2014. I think the errors probably stretch back further than that, but I think it's to some of the points Graham was mentioning as well. They've potentially kind of got straight into games, but very much come to it from a sales push perspective, and that's completely the wrong way. It's definitely a turn off for consumers, and games are just not going to get engaged by that. So I think it's important for the brand to understand how gaming can help them. So if it's an m-commerce objective, then it's probably not going to help them. If it's raising awareness, having engaging opportunities with brands, having longer engagements with the consumers, then it's very good. So I think it's a case of weighing up what they want to do and then seeing if gaming can help them do that. And I'd probably say we've certainly noticed this year there's been a more openness for brands to become more involved with gaming. We had a few kind of pioneer brands maybe in the last 2 or 3 years that kind of initially got into it. But this year, again, further to Graham's point, there's a lot more brands that are open to it. And I think it's up to us as marketeers to assist them and to tell them when gaming is right and also potentially when gaming is wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it is up to us to show clients actually what is out there, what is possible, because I'm not sure that they really know. And I think, you know, it's our job to sort of educate them in a way on a lot of stuff, and not just looking at games in China, it's looking at what is going on across the world. And sometimes I think people here just concentrate too much on the China market, and you know, they need to open their eyes more, because what is going on out there is really amazing. If you look at what's happening in Japan, there's some incredible stuff. It's kind of ahead of the curve, cutting edge stuff. And as I said, you know, this is really, really early days. You know, everything is changing so fast that the possibilities now are, you know, unbelievable.
We can certainly share some more insights in terms of what brands should really be considering about getting into gaming. I mean, a couple of points to talk about is understand the target audience. So if your target audience is maybe primarily female, then your gameplay type needs to skew more towards the females. So that's probably more of your casual game. If it's a male skew, then potentially you can have a bit more of a kind of deeper strategy adventure game. So it's understanding your target audience, what they'll typically like to do from a gaming perspective, and link that back to your proposed gameplay as a brand.
I think there's a knowledge problem, a perception problem. I mean, for a lot of our clients and prospects is they often tend to underestimate how widespread and mainstream hardcore gaming is, especially in China. They still have this idea of the gamer being that lonely dude in his dorm room, and that's not very appealing if you're selling shampoo or biscuits. And so there's a lot of education to be done in showing people that no, you have a lot of people with like spending power, sophisticated people who are very serious gamers. Another issue is that from an organizational point of view, nobody really owns gaming. It requires a mix of skills and knowledge that few brands currently have in one space. You need to understand it. You need to have a very intuitive understanding of what gaming is. You kind of like need to have been part of that culture before to really kind of get it. But you also need to have the whole marketing the side of things, understanding how does this fit into the whole strategy of the business and the brand. So it's like putting a lot of skills and competencies and knowledge together that so far, I think for a lot of brands is still a challenge. It's changing fast, but there's a lot of work yet to be done.
Graham, Kevin, Liam, thanks for being on the show today. That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Youku, Tudo, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo, WeChat, and Twitter, and join our LinkedIn group. See you again.